You're hereby summoned to attend the monthly meeting of Business and Culture Committee to be held in the Council Chamber, Guildhall and Derry, Tuesday the 12th of March, 4 p.m. I take the roll call. Alderman Chelsea Cook.
Here.
Alderman Guy has given his apologies. Alderman Middleton.
Here.
Councillor Clark. Councillor Cusack.
Apologies.
Councillor Farrell.
Here.
Councillor Fleming.
Shaw.
Councillor Gallagher.
Shaw.
Councillor Hart.
And Shaw.
Councillor Hutton.
Apologies.
Councillor McDade.
Here.
Councillor McHugh.
Shaw.
Councillor Fergal.
Shaw.
And Councillor O'Neillis.
Sure.
Thank you, members.
I'll just read the broadcasting statement here. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. If you are seated in the lower public seating media areas, it is possible that the recording cameras will capture your image, and this will result in the possibility that your image will become part of the broadcast. By entering the council chamber and using the press or lower public seating area, you're consenting to being filmed and consenting to the use and storage of those images for webcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. If you wish to avoid this, you should move to the upper public gallery. A copy of the council privacy notice can be found on the council website. Declaration of members' interest. If anybody has any interest that they want to declare.
Just on item 13, I am a board member of Peace Plus.
Can I declare the same, please?
Similar Chair. Councillor McKee.
And I have a similar, I sit on that board as well. Okay, open for decision now, chairperson's business. I don't have any chairperson business, but I would just like to welcome Councillor Amanda Clark to the Business and Culture Committee. Thank you. Go now to item 6, matters arising from the open minutes of the Business and Culture Committee held on Tuesday the 13th of February 2024, pages 3 to 14. Everybody happy enough? Go ahead, Councillor McDade.
Chair, sorry, I can't get the agenda open there. It's BC 25-24. Just the Strabane Mufford half marathon. It's just to highlight the disruption on Saturday after the 10-mile race. I know everybody's probably sick listening to it now, but I suppose there was a lot of concerns about the congestion in Derry City during the race throughout the day. Even after the race was over, the congestion continued. So I just suppose as a new-ish councillor now, just was council kind of consulted on it at the time whenever it was kind of decided that it was going to go along the road and not on the footpath this year. I know that the organisers have come out and said it won't happen again because obviously we know the work's going to be finished, but I'm just trying to, I just want to highlight the concerns that there was raised at the time. It was a nightmare. It was terrible in the city on Saturday. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, obviously we're aware of the concerns. Just to highlight, it wasn't a council run event, so it wasn't our traffic management or our plan. The group had presented they have to, and it's not through this committee, it's through environmental health. They have to apply through council for a road closure. That was done, was advertised. DFI and PSNI and the general public all have a right to object, complain, put in concerns. Nobody raised any issues, so therefore the road closure was granted. So any concerns beyond that in terms of traffic management, so we are passing to the event organisers. I am aware that they've said, going forward they'll be on the greenway, so therefore it won't happen. But it also highlights why, as council, we prefer Sundays. So both the Strabane half marathon and the Waterside half marathon are run on Sundays for a reason, for that reason. But as I say, it's not our decision to run on a Saturday. It's the event organisers. They then have to put a traffic management plan in place and so on, and that has to be consulted on. there were no objections, so therefore it went through. But clearly it caused major disruption, and I've dealt with several phone calls and emails and so on from businesses, and quite rightly highlighting that they have concerns about how it was managed, and we're passing all of those on to the event organisers.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, Councillor. Anybody else from matters arising? Okay, we'll move on to item 7, National Event Fund, pages 15 to 20. 80.
Thank you, Chair. So, members, the purpose of this report is to update you on the outcome of an assessment of an application received for the National Events Subvention Fund and to seek approval to award the successful applicant. So, members, you may be aware that there's provision for subvention for one-off national events which could be attracted to the region if subvention were available. It was always anticipated this would be a very small number and that an allocation for the festival and events budget would be made to facilitate this. Officers have developed, based on the criteria outlined, a standardised mechanism for the assessment of this type of one-off opportunity. And it was always anticipated that this would require the generation of a specific paper to council, which is this paper for this particular festival for this year. The total available budget for this fund is currently £35,000. Members, you may recall previous successful applicants to this included the Ulster Rally and the Cricket International Series. The criteria for considering an application to this programme are total visitor numbers, including participants, which must be greater than 5,000, and an overall budget of £100,000 or more, with funding requests considered between £10,000 and £50,000. The event must highlight the district council area as an events and tourism destination through high-profile international media coverage, aimed return on investment of 5 to 1, and the event must enhance the city and district's opportunities to hold further major events, be backed by a viable budget and realistic planning, and have measurable outcomes. And part of the process to ensure this is that all applicants must meet with a member of the festival and events team and forward the proposals at least 1 year in advance of the event. Only one request has come to officers for this process for the next financial year. Officers have worked with the organisers to understand their proposal in more detail, and the organisers were asked to submit a written application which was assessed by a panel against the outlined criteria. Members should note this applicant has also applied and been successful in the headline events funds, which would have been brought to you at a previous committee, but has requested to be considered under the National Events Fund as they believe that the event is of such significance to warrant this application. Full details of the outcome of this assessment by the panel, including eligibility scoring and requested funds, is set out in the Appendix 1 of this report. So the event is an international arts event entitled the Yes Festival, and it would be compiled of a series of indoor and outdoor events across the city in June of this year. The inaugural Yes Festival, entitled The Future, A Female Vision, will be the culmination and climax of the Europe-wide Ulysses European Odyssey, a €3 million European Commission Creative Europe project running from 2022 to 2024 across 18 cities and 16 countries and producing 16 major public events in public spaces. 18 cross-sectoral conference symposia discussing social and cultural themes identified in 18 episodes of James Joyce's Ulysses. The programme in the city will comprise 32 European female artists from all the 18 partner cities gathered in the northwest to acknowledge the culmination of the overall 2-year project, as well as to celebrate the contemporary female voice and spirit across Europe with artists from a range of different artistic disciplines. The £350,000 Yes Festival will be citywide, involving 30 venues and locations indoor and outdoor. There will be 26 live events with 14 performance, 7 public installations outdoor and in galleries, 18 community organisations open house theme programme, and there will be 450 participants, 20 European partners in attendance and 32 ambassadors of the 16 nation embassies in both Dublin and London invited to attend the opening civic reception. After the panel assessment, the event scored highly in terms of strategic fit, partnership and media profile. The media profile with this event is particularly strong. There's a limited budget of £35,000 and for this fund, and it's recommended that the event receive this amount, but this will be subject to a number of conditions which will be set out in the letter of offer, including achieving the anticipated budget, achieving the significant marketing spend indicated, and achieving the level and profile of artist and programming indicated in the application. This award will be made subject to the applicants meeting all the other general conditions of any letter of offer. And in addition, if the level of budget spend is not achieved by the organisers, it's recommended that Council award its funding on a percentage pro rata basis on the spend achieved. So members, the funding for the National Events Programme will be drawn from already member approved rates-based budget, and the recommendation in the report is to allocate up to £35,000 to the Yes Festival for the National Events Subvention Fund, subject to conditions set out in the letter of offer. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Aideen. Councillor Farrell.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Aideen, for the report. Happy to propose on behalf of the SALP. I think that the Yes Festival is an interesting and exciting proposal. It's a £350,000 programme of events right across the city, which will get us international visitors and international exposure. But I've got a question about the impact on our cultural grant aid process. I know that they had applied for the headline event fund and were successful. I know that they've applied for the national event fund and are likely to be successful subject to ratification at this committee. How does that impact the headline events now? Because I know there were some organisations who were unsuccessful and didn't get funded. Does that mean that there is scope within that budget to fund all our organisations?
So just to be clear, and in case it wasn't from the report, this organisation will not be successful in both funds. So it will be either or. They will not be awarded under both. So, and we've made that clear to the organisers. So if they're successful in the national events, theoretically, they can get up to £35,000, but it is subject to their match. So it's subject to them, the conditions that would have been set out in the letter of offer. So if that doesn't, I mean, we have to take them on the basis of what they present to us, and assume that they're going to do exactly what they said what they say they'll do to the level that they say they'll do. But the recommendation is there that the funding will be allocated on a pro rata basis. So if their match funding doesn't come in where we expect it to be, the recommendation there is that it's pro rata. So effectively a similar amount in theory. If the 35,000 drops on a pro rata basis, if they're successful in this fund, then that will be reallocated into headline events fund. And as you know, there's a couple of events sitting in the wings, as it were, waiting to come in that fund should budget become available. But it's important to note it's an either or. So if they come out of headline and award in this, the amount effectively is similar. So, but in theory, if whatever the pro rata is brought down, that will be anything is left over in the 35,000 fund will be allocated into headline. So if they don't take it from headline, from national events fund, that money will be just put over into headline events, because this is the last committee for the next financial year, so we know there will be no other asks of that fund. So the national events fund, what we have done in previous years, if it's not allocated by a specific paper to the likes where we brought it to the Ulster Rally, we reallocate that, and that automatically goes into the headline events fund. That makes sense. So we will not have another application into this, because you must speak to us at least a year in advance. So we need to bring a report in a year in advance. So that money is, if it's not used as a national event, it goes into headline. But this organisation have applied into both. So it's not going to free up a huge amount of money to go back into headline, if that makes sense, because they've been successful in that fund. They had a very successful application already into headline, but they have requested, so we gave them the option. We said, look, you can take your award, you can take your current letter of offer under headline, but if you want to, they said, well, we are of such significance, we think we warrant a national event, and we would like to try for £35,000 funding. So we have to bring to, well, they said they would like that to be presented to members, which is what we're doing now. But we have obviously those conditions and some of those caveats in there to ensure that it is of that it will, will appear in reality as of what they've said. So that if the match in that doesn't materialize, it will be pro-rated down. So, but if of what they say they're going to bring in terms of match, then it warrants 35. But it's not going to free up a whole £35,000 to go back into headline, if that makes sense.
So we won't know until June, basically, or after June.
I suppose to a certain degree we'll know probably, as the weeks go on, I suppose their other letters of offer will start to come in and they'll start to confirm it. So we'll probably know a good bit, we would hope they would come to us and say, look, this isn't going to materialize as we thought it would, or it is, in which case then, it's a good investment and all the rest. But if it isn't going to, it'll be pro-rata, but you would expect probably to get indication of that be in advance of June. So, and I suppose we'd be pressing on them, look, if this isn't going to be used, there's other applicants could use this money.
Thanks, Aileen. Thanks, Councillor Farrell. Councillor O'Neillis.
And thanks for that, Aileen. Happy to second that on behalf of Sinn Féin. And obviously it's a good news story for this event, but it's also a good news story for the other events then, that money will then filter back down into them. So just in terms of in-kind payments, do they qualify for any in-kind payments then, or how does that work?
They will no. It has to be cash. So I think it says there that we don't consider in kind now. So there isn't an in kind provision there. I mean, we obviously ask all our events to track their in kind spend, but in terms of the award, it's not. We don't consider in kind. It's actual cash match.
Thanks, Aileen. Thanks, Councillor Hussey. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. I'm not a member of committee, as you know. Definitely an exciting project if it comes to fruition, or whatever way it comes to fruition through whatever fund. But, and there's always a but when I speak, isn't there? Rory's looking at me. But, my following remarks are in the aftermath of Strabane Drama Festival not being funded. So take it in that context if you wish. But 2.3 within the criteria, the event must highlight the district council area as an events and tourism destination through high profile. So there's that aspect. Then I look at 3.2, where the Yes Festival will be city-wide. How do those two equate? If it's to be a district council event, and here we have a city-wide event, how, or are there within the letter of offer, will there be stipulations that this must impact district-wide as well? Thank you, Chair.
Aileen.
Well, I think that refers to the city and district council areas and events and tourism destination. I suppose any event coming here should highlight the whole overall city. It will highlight the overall city and district. That's the purpose. It's a one council approach to the National Events Fund. So, but happy to talk to them about how they're going to look at their programming throughout the city and district.
Thank you, Chair. I look forward to how it will impact on Colleator and Newton Stewart and Plumbridge and other such important centres within our wider district. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Alderman Hussey. Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question on, the score mechanisms in the appendix, and I see it's saying this event will have 2,585 bed nights. If I'm reading this right, is that correct? Is it? And it scored 20. I was just wondering how does that get worked out?
Well, they put details into their application of the numbers of bed nights that they estimate they will bring to the city and district. And then we work with them, usually partly it's research with the hoteliers, with Visit Derry. They're asked to provide us with the detail of where their bed nights come from, their number of their participants, you know, so there's a whole raft of detail that we have to, now it's not an exact science, but you take it on the basis of their audience numbers and you overlay that with data that we generally comes from Visit Derry and their hotelier survey. So it is hotel bed nights and then the numbers of participants. So they usually have details of the numbers of people who are participants who are coming here and have recorded that they're staying overnight. And then also they would overlay most events of this scale will overlay that with audience surveys. So it's a combination of different pieces of data that to get the best estimate of the numbers of bed nights.
John, just thank you for that. Just I'm reading the report and seeing one around participants, 415. And then I'm just thinking to myself, if every one of those was staying, they need to be staying 6+ nights, you know, to come up with. But we scored it top mark at 20, you know, and that assessment. And I don't want to sound pedantic, like, but I know the likelihood is most of the audience will be locally based, as Derek says, in this city. You know, they'll not be coming from Cleater down here, I don't think. But I even if all the participants and the invited guests, you know, it seems to be maxed out at over 6 nights, and I think it's ambitious for us to give it 20 on that, but just for the record. But thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Gallagher. You happy enough, Aidan? You don't want to come back on that? Right. Okay, anybody else want to come in? Okay, we'll move on to item 8. Approval to enter into licenses for organisations is required to facilitate Derry City and Strabane District Council festivals and events programmes. Pages 21 to 30. Kevin? Sorry, Aidan.
It's me. Members, you will recall a similar paper to you probably about this time last year, just to seek your approval to enter into licenses with various organisations that are set out in the appendix, which are required to facilitate the setup and operation of the Council's festival and event programme throughout the year. You've a list there of our major events, but the ownership of area used for these events is made up from a number of statutory and private landowners, and to facilitate the overall events programme, it's necessary to enter into temporary agreements or easements with landowners to facilitate the delivery of a programme. You'll be aware from last year's audit recommendations that each of these require specific permission for any transaction of this nature, and to this end, officers are seeking a specific approval for permission for temporary licenses or arrangements to facilitate the delivery of the Council's festival and events programme with relevant departments. Licenses will be based on the terms and conditions no more onerous than those set out in the sample licence set out in Appendix 2, and the consideration in respect of any individual licence does not exceed £1. Again, the events programme will operate at various times and dates set out in the appendix. There's no significant financial issues, and the overall focus of this report is legal arrangement. Members, you're asked to approve entering into licenses with the organisations outlined in Appendix 1 as required to facilitate the setup and operation of the annual events, and on terms and conditions no more onerous than those in sample licence in Appendix 2 attached, provided that the consideration in respect of any individual licence does not exceed £1. Happy to take any questions.
Alderman Hussey?
Just a quick one, thanks for that. I understand all of the licensing issues. I happened to bump into the licensing officer of another organisation today. Are there difficulties with some of the locations that are being licensed?
In what regard?
Are there difficulties being expressed with regard to some of the locations that are being considered?
Not that I'm aware of, but it's early days. I'm not, and I don't, I suppose this is an overall, the arrangement tends to deal with some smaller, you know, specific pieces of land, and they're just for the duration of the event. I mean, I'm happy to pick up with Alderman Hussey if there's something specific you want us to look at. There's nothing that I'm aware of that's causing us significant concern. There might be, certainly with all of those things, there's probably particular arrangements, but I'm not aware of anything particular that we should be raising at this stage, but happy to pick up with you afterwards if there's something you think I should be aware of.
I'll speak to you afterwards. It was just this afternoon. I bumped into his the licensing officer of another organisation, and he expressed concern on a particular issue, but I'll say to you, okay.
Okay, thanks, Alderman Hussey. Anybody else want to come in on that? Councillor Farr?
I'm not sure if Alderman Hussey proposed that, but, oh, you're not on the committee. Well, here, I'm happy to propose it. You know, we've got a fantastic calendar of events right across the city and district. We've got one coming up this weekend and the St. Patrick's Day celebrations. And what this paper proves is that we can't do these ourselves. We need the support of partners right across the city and district, specifically landowners, to make these successful. So happy to propose this.
Okay, we need a seconder. Councillor Farrell. Okay, moving on to open for information. Items 9 to 10. So we'll take item 9 first, car park resurfacing, Market Square Claudy update. Anybody wants to come in? Councillor Fleming.
Just wanted to thank Stephen and the team for the report. I see that the RSA has come back with recommendations for the Claudy car park. There's nothing in there I have any disagreement or issues with, so long as any design that comes out, any design that is informed by those recommendations is then brought in for public consultation with the people of Claudy once again. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Fleming. Alderman Middleton.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the officers for bringing forth the report. The DUP welcome the report, and we would really love to see movement on it. We realise there were issues before, but we're definitely really thankful that the work's still ongoing, and there's going to be another public consultation, which hopefully will be a positive experience for the officers. Thank you.
Thanks, Alderman Middleton. Anybody else? No. So item 10. Off-street car parking enforcement and PCN processing contract update, pages 55 to 62. Anybody want to come in that? Councillor Farrell.
Just briefly, Chair. So I know there's going to be a new contract starting hopefully around the 1st of March. So the question I'd want to ask is, what noticeable changes will people see apart from the red coats turning to blue coats? You know, have we got like a communication plan devised so there's a smooth sort of transition? Because you know people are used to using one app and they're going to have to change another app, I understand. So if we could just outline what the public need to know to make sure that they're not caught by undue parking fines that are none of their own doing.
No, it's a good point in relation to it. But the most noticeable thing will be for the consumer will be the app. So obviously you're moving from Just Park to the Ringo app, so that will change. But from the 1st of April, there'll be different customer support and contact information. There will be obviously the branding will look slightly different, and that type of thing, but the pricing will remain the same, the service will remain the same, the capacity and the capability of the team that's behind it will be the same. In terms of the communication, yeah, we have a comprehensive communication plan ready to go for this to kick in, not only with the provider, but then locally, each of the councils is involved in it, then has their own sort of local plan. So yeah, we'll cover all of those bases and make sure that people are fully aware of any of the changes. But it should, you know, apart from the app, the experience won't be any different. Yeah, and from our perspective, it'll also allow for, as we've been starting to phase in, actual cashless payment at the car park in addition to the app, which is something that the feedback that we wanted. People obviously are carrying less and less cash, so that's a really good addition that's going to come in, and it's obviously going to help us transition over the next couple of years under our bigger plans in relation to City Deal in terms of the smart parking pilots and stuff that we want to roll out. So it gives us that flexibility. So yeah, we'll have the public well informed in relation to this.
Thanks, Kevin. Are you okay with that, Councillor Farrell? Alderman Middleton?
Thank you, Chair. And just a wee tiny question. Will the location codes remain the same? It might be like maybe Victoria Market 3606. So I sort of know them all off by heart now, and I'm sure many other people do too. So just wondering.
I'm not 100% about that. I have a hunch that they won't, but that'll all be contained within it. And as beside the machine, the stickers will be replaced with the new, if they're changing the new location codes. I would imagine they will.
Sometimes quite far away.
No problem, Aileen. I'll take that on board.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Alderman Middleton. So if that concludes that section of the meeting, we'll go into confidential for decision now. I'll just wait for the nod.